me milusimi pinis, milusim susu, migoovat orsem mangi. Amigo ovat ikamatem papa blomina. Milukim we praman. Milukim na mino rukuruku stret, mi pret no guturu. Nami bokro krai krai.
Wakaraji we beong, nay makanje na ingyong, iugo ko balui bab. Nay mimba piarani piararu nuruba nyeredon. Nay mseraki kaya mjanga, kairiki jakara uibab, indaki ko balui bab. Nay mseraki kaya. Ibiyeme kajamano nguire yara kanda ungu, piara ibe mini yamro ab, nay mamu bar kanda yamari. Oro nay mseraki kaya. Seraki kabaro. O pena mabara mani ibu para yama maka kabaro urunya kara. Me piara ibab yalo. Ba wamba uyu anda kara piaru bi.
Well, we never killed people to go and look for gold, or we never killed them because they tried to stop us from looking for gold. The only reason that we killed people was simply if we hadn't killed them, they would have killed us and all our carriers, all the people that we were with. The gold had nothing to do with it.
New Guinea was one of the last places on Earth to be colonized by Europeans. In the 1920s, the Australians occupied only the coastal fringe of this huge island lying just to their north. Of the interior, nothing was known. No European had ever been there. Australia, the occupying colonial power, saw its role as bringing civilization to New Guinea. Along the coast, missionaries busied themselves saving souls, while the plantation owners put them to work. It was cheap labor. But by the mid-1920s, New Guinea was hard hit by low world prices for its few products. There seemed little to attract the white man. And then, in 1926, gold was discovered a mere 40 miles inland. Hundreds of Australians came up to New Guinea in search of the quick fortune.
The great day has arrived. Dredge number 1 is completed and ready for work. The official opening is an occasion for celebration and festivities. The floating monster's arrival from civilization thrills the Kanaka as much as the white man, and he throws himself into his task with zest. You will understand how the native has benefited by these activities. A long time will elapse before he shakes off the shackles of barbarism, but his contact with the environment of the white man must inevitably hasten his progress along the path that leads to civilization.
Within a few years, the small-time miners had worked out their claims, or saw them bought out by the big dredging companies. Most of these men drifted back to Australia and the dull queues of the Depression. A few stayed on, convinced that somewhere else in New Guinea there was more gold to be found. Among them were 3 brothers, Michael, Daniel and James Leahy. The eldest and acknowledged leader was Michael Leahy, who died in 1978. He is survived by his brothers Daniel and James.
When I went to New Guinea, I was young and I suppose pretty thick in the skull to go there in the first place with malaria and all kinds of things. But anyhow, when I got there, I went there and I didn't think I was going to stay there very long because I didn't like it. I got the fever and I didn't like climbing mountains and wasn't particularly mad about the people. But anyhow, I stayed there. And when I stayed there for the benefit of James Leahy. And I didn't do badly for him. But I stayed there for 50 years.
When the gold rush broke out in New Guinea and Mick left Australia to come to the gold rush, I had just left school and it was in the middle of the Depression, and I had got a job up in North Queensland working on a dairy farm. Well, my only thoughts from then, after I'd learnt that Mick had gone and the gold rush, was to get to New Guinea and be doing the same things as Mick was doing. A lot of people say that Mick had the gold fever. Well, we all had it. So you can imagine what terrific excitement it was that I was at last almost on my way to the promised land.
Spurred on by dreams of another great gold strike, Michael Leahy turned to prospecting. The obvious place to look for new gold was the interior, where no European had ever been before. In 1930, the interior of New Guinea was one of the last great unexplored regions then left on the face of the earth. Rising up in the centre of the island was a great mountain range. So sheer and rugged, it was thought to be uninhabited. But unknown to the outside world, within these mountains were huge and fertile valleys, and in these valleys lived 1 million people. Michael Leahy and his companions were the first white men to enter this hidden world and meet its people. Leahy was looking for gold, but he took a camera with him, and so a record of this historic encounter was captured on film. The year was 1930.
Mesra Masamek, emi hat pramani true. One pramani no can steer, ino can ibagrapi mugakatenno, ino can paiti mona pramani emi hat pramani true. Na emi kababro pressure bro you mean I miss. Bi pramani bro you mean now me putin piga yam. Masamek, mekirai. Emia, nani braman mekirai.
Mick was always the leader of our party. He always went in the lead. He was a born prospector, I think, you know, and he was a very, very good organizer, and he got very well with all the native people. The carriers all looked up to Mick as the leader. But he was very kind, but he was very hard at the same time. Mick was always confident we would find the El Dorado before we had finished our travels. As long as there's a crate further up the valley that no one else has had a look at, that's a good enough driving force for anyone. But it was very, very hard. When you're right out in the centre, there was no way of getting back, only the way you came. For about 90 miles, we had to walk to get to the place where we decided to cross the ranges. Well, then we had to climb up to 9, 10, 11,000 feet. The reward in the end was when we looked down into the valleys below, it looked like a big parkland. Of course, it was quite obvious that there was a huge population because of the huge garden patches